Lesson Plan Evaluation, Diane Cook, EDUC 5023, April the 13th, 2018. Ms. Kim Wickerson. Does the lesson plan contain a writing component? Yes. It asks the students to listen to describe 3 separate amendments in the closure of the lesson plan. Does that component require students to communicate through writing as a scientist, historian, mathematician, etc., would within their discipline in the real world? In the writing prompt, the lesson does not ask students to communicate their ideas through real world discipline, nor ask them to communicate through writing as a scientist, historian, or mathematician. However, the group activity does ask of these in a discussion, but not writing. Does the lesson plan require students to interact at some point as an intellectual community? Yes. Do they share their knowledge, learning, findings using the language of the discipline? The lesson plan does require the students to interact in an intellectual community. In the independent practice, students are asked to pair in groups and share their knowledge of amendments with their peers. Also, students are asked to share their views and ideas with other parties in the classroom. Does the lesson plan include a project-based activity? This lesson does require a project-based activity in which it requires students to go to a specific website and create a spreadsheet that represents the 2 ways amendments of the Constitution can be made. Are they doing the work that a real scientist, mathematician, historian, etc. would do in the real world? It asks the students to identify the 27 amendments as a historian would during the presentation of new material. Also, it asks the students to explain in their own words in what each amendment means. This can be related to real world examples. The ultimate evaluation is this. Does the lesson require the students to think like a scientist, think like a historian, think like a mathematician, etc.? Does it require students to learn, use knowledge, know a specific set of behaviors dedicated to the discipline or area of study within the discipline? This lesson required the students to think like a historian by researching the amendments and explaining why each amendment was changed. A scientist hypnotizes his or her ideas about outcomes and specify in this lesson. This lesson challenged students to relate their ideas to real world experiences. I would like to see the lesson more statistics in specific amendments as to how it would change the U.S. for the good or bad. Conclusion. Yes, I feel that this lesson plan was a qualified lesson plan. It allowed the students to communicate and it required the students to interact with one another. This lesson required students to think and it will open students' eyes so that they would get a better understanding and knowledge of the amendments. People take the amendments for granted, or they like to use them when it's benefit them, whenever it suits their needs or whatever they are doing. It would help them to see the importance of the amendments in their everyday life and in the government. This lesson is one that can be taught several different ways. It also contains a writing component in which students can research about the amendments and draw their own opinions. I believe students will get a better understanding of the amendment. Thank you.